Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. We are wrapping up the school year. I'm super excited about that, and I know many families across the nation are. And so before I go into my talk and into my subject, I do want to give some announcements. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on the X Factor EDU network hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph. You can also find it on Spotify. In addition to that, I'll be hosting it also on my social media channels, which are listed below. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. In addition to that, please check out the website whenever you get a chance. Thank you to those that have been. www.india-white.com for books, blogs, or to schedule me for your next event or for the next school year. Some of the events that I have coming up, and I would love to connect with many of you. We have FCTM coming up this summer, along with NCTM and CTE joint conferences in Chicago. CAMPS conference in July will also be at the NCSM, NCTM conferences and more. Thank you so much to everybody that has given me an opportunity to join you in these different adventures. I'm super excited. I can't wait to see so many of you wonderful, amazing, gritty rock stars. I also want to remind you of the Grit Mini Workshop. You guys can take advantage of this summer as well on the Grassroots Workshops website. You can check that out and get a little bit more grit. In addition to that, I've had some wonderful success stories with the Grit Academy. For those that are wanting more tutoring or, just more support for your students this summer, feel free to let us know, send an email, and we will get to you. If you're wanting to be featured also on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast, please send me an email so that we can talk and schedule some type of consultation, see how we can get you on and in front of these amazing principals and teachers. You can send me an email, india.white.123@gmail.com. And so again, this podcast is if you're trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues or your students just aren't motivated to do work, then you can join me on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast, and we can talk about some things. I usually do record settings only because I want to make sure you guys get the best quality content and that there aren't like thunderstorms that interrupt us and things like that. With that said, we're going to be talking today about really learning how we together can celebrate grit. And again, when I talk about grit and I talk about celebrating grit, we're talking about, of course, great resilience in time. And we're talking about how do you celebrate learners who have done a great job or celebrate teachers who are doing an incredible job in the field of education? And so, I know that we have graduation around the corner and some people celebrate differently. And I think that we have to be very mindful of that. Definitely when you're dealing with different personality styles of your students and whatnot, not all of your students are the same. And, what works for one might not work for the other, but that doesn't mean that you can't at least try, right? So with that said, I do want to show you guys what I was able to find for us, but then I also want to start out by just giving my own tips. So whenever you're celebrating grit, there's nothing wrong with verbal praise. I want to say whenever you're giving students or teachers verbal praise, it's imperative that you do your best to be specific as to why you're praising them, what they did right, so that they can repeat that or so that they know that you took notice of the little detail. You were attentive to detail for them. Another thing I would do is I would, use certificates. I do have these little gritty certificates that I created for you guys. I thought was pretty cute that you can give to your students. You can give certificates to award your students and let them know that you're proud of the work they've done, throughout the school year. It doesn't always have to be just in the week, right? It could have been something they did a couple of months ago that really kind of helped mold the class's culture in a good way, or there's like a lot of these different things that you can do for your students. Another thing is use of gift cards. whether you're working with your administrators or whatnot on campus, your school district, find out if there's funding. I know usually we used to be able to fund using different grants and things, including Title I funding and things like that. And I know some of those things are kind of sketchy now. So you just look and see what resources. Sometimes your PTA, like your parents, will come together and will also give. And so those are some ideas that you do regarding, gift cards, how you can give to your students. Another thing I would say is, for parents, family members, vacations and trips, I know some schools, though, they'll do like a trip to Universal Studios or a trip to Disney for all their seniors that, had a 3.0 or higher, something like that, like to celebrate those that are graduating. Those are options as well. But, as parents, you can, schedule a vacation for your students. I know there'll be lots of traveling, I'm sure, this summer. If things continue in the world as is, there'll be lots of travel. People will be going different places to celebrate their loved ones. And then, of course, parties, there's nothing wrong with a really good party. You can definitely, just champion in on that and really enjoy and let your students feel and know that they are special. Let them know that they belong. They've always belonged, especially in a time where kids and, loved ones are being told that, maybe they don't belong. It would be great to see them really get celebrated. So, as we're talking about Celebrate Grit, now I want to transition and, talk a little bit about what I was able to find on the web for us. So I'll share talking about graduation rates, and it says that, students are graduating, but it doesn't tell the whole story is what it says. And so look at that kid's hair. So it says the announcement of Florida's rising 2024 high school graduation rate earlier this year elicited cheers and kudos from educators and government leaders across the state. Florida has had an all-time high of 89.7% of teens that earned a diploma in 4 years. That's impressive. It says it was a mark matched only during the COVID-19 pandemic when the Department of Education waived some of the graduation requirements. Okay. And it says, this record graduation rate is a prime metric of our success, in addition to our number one in the nation rating, the governor said. And then it says here, but the state's graduation rate also seemingly contradicts a host of other metrics that paint a dimmer picture of education in Florida. Among them, Florida's average SAT ranked 47th nationally in 2024. And was down 18 points from the year before. Wow. Okay. The state's performance on the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, slipped to its lowest in 2 decades. Half of high school juniors and seniors taking the Algebra 1 end of course scored at the lowest level. So, how is it possible for the graduation rate to soar among these gloomier outcomes? That is a great question. So, a closer look at the graduation numbers shows that to get across the stage, a growing number of seniors relied on the state-approved alternatives to the standard path for a diploma. Okay. So, some of these alternative tests are easier and don't prepare students for or as well for life after high school. Others say it's a critical resource for students who might otherwise have fallen by the wayside. This is very interesting. And then it says here, by the numbers, we have of the nearly 250,000 teens of the class 2024, just under half, or 43%, use tests that are generally considered easier to pass than the state exams on language arts and algebra to qualify for graduation. That rate was up from 36.5% a year earlier and 31% 3 years before that. This is very interesting. So the reliance on Tampa Bay schools, is on the concordant scores. And so it says that this is an alternative to state required graduation exams for more than 2 decades. That grew even faster. And over time, the testing options. Yes, it does include SAT, ACT, things like that. So let's keep going. It says schools that rely on the alternative tests tend to have more non-white students and higher shares of English language learners, and they struggle with high absenteeism. But the biggest factor driving the change in popular alternate exams is that more students have high-income schools. That more students at high-income schools are taking them. Excuse me. Interesting. It says schools in the top 25% of the free and reduced lunch students were more than twice as likely to rely on the alternative tests as those in the bottom 25%, during the 2019-2020 school year. But the disparity is shrinking. Last year, the use of alternative exams among low-income students is just 20% higher than that of their wealthier peers. Okay, so they're talking about, in particular, school districts in Tampa. So it says nearly 70% of Steinbrenner grads used an alternative exam to graduate last year. Okay, up from less than 1 in 5 in 2019, 2020. By comparison, 52% of graduates at Tampa's less affluent Chamberlain High School used an alternative exam last year, on a slight increase from 5 years ago. So two community advocates such as Goliath Davis, the St. Pete police chief, a former one, and a deputy mayor, is clear it will continue to impact the ability to function in the real world, who regularly rails against the use of alternative graduation standards. They're graduating, but are they proficient? The answer is a resounding no. So I'm going to stop right here. I want to say something. So I understand this beast a little bit. And so basically what's happening is people are ruffled because we have an option in Florida of students being able to get a diploma with the alternative testing, alternative exams, because maybe that student is not proficient in English, or maybe that student had some hiccups. Maybe they struggle with poverty, or, low income, things like that. And it's affected their ability to be as proficient as their more affluent peers. And so what happens is you have two options. The student comes that senior year and they're not proficient, or they're not where they need to be when it comes down to being able to graduate. So you can give them what they used to give them, which are certificates of completion, which is not even a diploma. It's nothing. It's a piece of paper that basically says, hi, I went to school for 13 years of my life, including kindergarten, and I got nothing. And guess what? You can't get a job. You can't do anything, right? Or you can give them alternative options for graduation, where if they get the alternative options and everything's filled out, then guess what? They get a diploma. Yes, they can get a job. They can do other things. There's other trajectories as to if they want to do community college, if they want to go into military, if they want to go into, get a job, whatever they want to do, go to college. They have these options. So my question is, what does it harm us as adults, parents, community leaders to offer students an opportunity to advance in this life with a certificate, or not a certificate of completion, but with alternative options, so that they can get a diploma? I'm going to say it again. What does it hurt us if we allow students alternative options for graduating, so that, one, they don't just get a certificate of completion and then wind up on the streets and possibly wind up in crime, wind up in deeper levels of poverty, right? There's that. Or it's give the student an opportunity to move forward and advance, looking at the situations and the predicaments that were against that child or against their family. I mean, listen, we have to understand, not every student has two parents in the home. Not every student has parents making over six figures. Not every student has a perfect situation. Some students are dealing with grief. Some students are dealing with poverty. Some students are dealing with crime. There's all different types of elements that goes into, teaching our learners and providing an environment where these students can thrive. I need all students to be able to succeed. And I think that being able to offer them this opportunity is actually an advantage and a support towards us as community leaders. Why do I say that? I would rather invest $90,000 in scholarships for students across the state of Florida than to invest, listen, $90,000 in prisons and different services that, come from our tax dollars to support their families because they can't get a job or they can't whatever. So I think what we're doing is we're helping our futures. We're helping our families as well as we give back and pay it forward to make sure that these students have these alternative options. I think there's an issue. There's an issue in education. And I think the issue is the rule followers get upset because the rules were finagled to best serve students. Maybe students that they feel shouldn't have an opportunity. Maybe students they feel, should have more, punishment. Personally, I don't agree that we should, be so black and white about, how students should be rated for their proficiency. Why do I say that? Because education is a tool to mold somebody, to teach them not only how to learn, but how to live their life. It teaches them mannerisms, but it teaches you how to thrive as a person. What good is it if we as educators and leaders say, hi, welcome to my class. Hi, welcome to our school. Hi, welcome to our school district, just to kick that student out and say, oh, well, you didn't miss it. You didn't make the cut by, 0.25%, or you only got a 59.21% in that class. So that means that you're not proficient. So you can't, contribute to society now. Now you got to go and figure it out because you can't get a job at Walmart. You can't get a job anywhere. You're going to be a grown 18-year-old, somebody just on the streets. My question is, why would we be in education if our hearts could be that callous? Now, I understand some people say, well, Indy, people have to pay for, their consequences and their shortcomings. But what about mercy? Like, why are we in this? Education is a service. It is it gets so frustrating to me when I think of things like this, that this actually made news, that somebody is upset because students are getting an opportunity to make it right. What about the student who got written up 1,000 times over a dress code situation? I'm not going to talk about personal experiences, but what I'll say is, what about students that are getting targeted because of dress code? But what if they're like really smart, but they just didn't dress right, and so now they're expelled? Or what about the student who they live with, they're in a single parent home and then they visit another home, or, whether it's an uncle or parent or something like that, for another week. And at the other home, maybe it's a little bit not as stable. And so that student is stuck between, two tough situations. So they're going to miss homework. They're going to come to school late. Coming to school late. That's another thing. At least they came to school. I think we make so many dramatic issues over foolishness. And I think sometimes people do this because they have nothing better to do with their lives. And it's really frustrating to me because these students are coming to school the best way they can, and they're getting penalized because they're 5 minutes late because they wore, an outfit that was too revealing to the subjective educator, whoever that person is. And I just think, like, why are we in this education business? Like, are we really trying to help kids? Or are we really trying to penalize them and set up a school to prison pipeline? We have to start thinking about this. And I think an article like this makes me think of the school to prison pipeline. Would you rather have a student on the streets because they weren't quite proficient at taking a test? So you're telling me one test that student couldn't understand? So then, because maybe that student is absolutely a rock star and bright and has grit, right? Especially if they're learning English as a second language. I know they're gritty. So you're telling me for a student like that, because they can't speak English, they have to take a test. And if they don't pass this test, that they can barely understand. I mean, yeah, you go try taking a test in their language, right? They, that they're automatically worthy for the streets. Can't get a job, no opportunity for college, military. Really? I don't think that's ethical. I think that's criminal in nature. To have somebody go to school 13 years and you're paying at least $8,000 a year per pupil, right? Like, so if you do the math, even if you say they went to school 18 years, but okay, let's say, or 13 years, take 10 years of that. That's $80,000 that we're, investing in that student. So you got $80,000 from the state to put that student on the street. That doesn't add up, does it? And so I think that, I'm on the side of, yes, we should have alternative testing. Yes, we should have alternatives to students getting diplomas besides just taking the standardized test that, some of them can barely understand. I'm very happy that students have this, and I hope that the graduation rate continues to spike, and I hope that students continue to get diplomas. Well done to them. Well done to everybody that was able to help see this through. And I just think that one thing we are missing in education is mercy towards students that need help, students and families that need our support, the underserved, those in different communities, those that have been othered. We need to support those communities because, my thing is this: if we're not going to help students and mold them into productive citizens, what are we doing? We need to get out of the education space. And so, with that said, I digress on that article because it really kind of gets on my nerves that somebody actually went through all of that wonderful data to show us that they might not be as happy about the results of us having alternative options for students that need it the most. So with that said, I'm going to now go back to celebrating grit, and I'm going to talk with you guys about a video that I found on how we can celebrate student and celebrate your graduates.
Graduation parties are, in fact, a big deal.
Yes, and it might be because at different ages, different kids are spreading out, going to different schools, leaving their friends behind after middle school, or of course, high school and college graduations are a big thing here too. Lots and lots of different types of schools here.
Okay, so a lot of parties, but one of the big things that I like about your tips are there's not really a right or wrong way.
It's all about the graduate, what the graduate wants to do. If they want to have a backyard barbecue, a party in a park, a sit-down fancy meal, a big spread for everybody that they've ever met in their life, or nothing at all, that's okay too. It's really all about the graduate.
It's all about...
Wow. Listen, the lady said it. It's all about the graduate. Everything we do, every teacher that we get up and we go to work and we serve, every principal, every administrator, every superintendent, it's all about the graduate. I wish we would start seeing students as graduates and not just a person that we don't really know their culture. We're scared of them, or we're, like they're not relevant. I wish we would start seeing students as graduates, as our future generation of graduates. If you saw every student as a graduate, it would change so much, and this isn't for everybody. This is just for those few that they just, can't seem to get it. I wish we would see our students as graduates. So, I love how she said that. Let's keep listening to see what else she had to say about how we could celebrate students.
I know you were just telling me you're planning your son's right now, which is exciting.
And he's having a college send-off party in August. So it'll be actually not his graduation's next week, but his party's in August.
Okay, fantastic.
And he's having it. We're having it at the Lamp Limp Hall, and
Okay.
that's a Benton Park venue. And one of the things that was attractive to us is they let you bring in your own food. So
Oh, wow.
you can just choose whatever your child wants for food as well. That's
Yes.
really important. We
Yes.
were talking about
we
that
were
earlier
talking
too.
about the food. That was some of the best parts, to see what food people had. Okay, so what do we need to know
that's
when
good.
we're reserving this space for these parties?
Yeah, look for flexibility. The Lemp complex has different venues, indoors, outdoors.
Okay.
Another good one is Bellwether Hall in
great.
Lafayette Square, just south of downtown. And they also partner with Polite Society. It's the same owners.
Out the graduate, right? We're celebrating
Mhm.
them. And you had mentioned if they don't want to party,
Oh,
you had this
yes.
idea here. So these
So
are
these are Sweeter Cards. It's a St. Louis
cards.
company, and they're all about the greeting. So if your child just doesn't want to do anything, make sure you celebrate as the parent, because you have earned it.
I love that. So this one says self-care 101 for the parents, and then boom, mic drop.
You did it for the
How
graduate.
cute is that?
Yeah, but definitely just make it, customize it to your family. Even if you don't have it now, have it later in the summer, have it at a.
I love it. So that was really neat as they, spoke with us about ideas as to how we could celebrate our graduates, but also parents, you need to celebrate as well because, you were the one taking the students to school. You were the one going to their games. You were the one signing them up, doing the paperwork. You're the one going to the parent meetings. You're the one that was, grounding them when they needed to be grounded, taking their phone and taking their PlayStation, whatever it was that you needed to do to make sure that that student came on top, making sure that they had the nutrition they needed before testing, making sure they had the moral support, emotional support. So yes, you two parents need to celebrate. So, our students have been very gritty for us, and I'm very proud of all Florida students, but in general, all students across this nation. I'm very proud of our nation and what we are doing for our students. And if you are still teaching students and you still have these babies in front of you, no matter if they're 5 years old or 18 or 19 or even 20, I want you to remember it's your job to help mold them. You don't have to make these last few days, as a gotcha or I'm going to get you, but it should be more of who can I show mercy to? Who can I celebrate in these last days? And as an educator, if you're trying to come up with other ideas to celebrate, talk to your administration about maybe throwing a little party at the end of the school year, celebrating your kids. It could be a project where you can go over the end of the school year or go over, 10 things I liked about the school year and have students bring in treats and things like that so that they can, celebrate and everybody can kind of reflect on the whole school year and, say good things to each other and move on and celebrate the next chapters. So with that said, this is a wonderful time to celebrate our kids and to celebrate you, and teachers. You've done a job well done, and I hope that all your kids graduated, but if not, I hope you didn't hold back more than say 1%. I'm just that person. But anyway, I wish you guys the best. And of course, I hope that you're also planning for summer. There's a lot going on this summer. So I hope that you're going to be able to really champion that and to have a good summer, because you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you did what's right for kids. So with that said, thanks so much, guys, for joining me on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thankful for you guys. Again, this Grit and Equity Talks podcast, it will be featured on the X Factor EDU network, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and you can also find it on Spotify. Also, you could find it on my main social media channels. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And Dr. India White is my TikTok. I also have Threads and I also have Blue Sky. Check out the website, please, www.india-white.com for books, blogs, or to schedule me for your next speaking or coaching event. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at FCTM. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the joint conference, NCTM and CTE conference in Chicago. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the CAMP conference, at the NCSM and the NCTM conferences. Thank you to all of those that have checked out the Grit mini workshop on the Grassroots Workshops website. And thank you to those that allowed me to tutor your children this year. We had a blast. Now, again, for those that are just joining me, if you are trying to close an achievement gap, you are having classroom management issues, or your students weren't motivated to do the work, then join me on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast anytime on Thursdays. I do have some future announcements coming up, some future things that will be launched soon. But but I won't spill the beans quite yet. So definitely stick around, and I'll keep you guys posted. But listen, whatever you do, keep your grit, stay gritty. Okay, remember to have great resilience in time. Watch my TEDx talk, The Power of Grit, for some more motivation. Until next time, stay gritty. See ya.